John 3:14. Et sicut Moses exaltavit serpentem in deserto, ita exaltari oportet filium hominis. And just as Moses lifted up the snake in the desert, so it is fitting or necessary that the Son of Man should be lifted up. There are a few interesting features in this verse as Jesus is beginning to wind up his conversation with Nicodemus here in the 3rd chapter of John that we might look at. The first is this nice coordinating structure, sicut ita. Just as such and such, so such and such. This is a very frequently repeated construction in Latin. It's nice and neat, and it divides our sentence into two parallel clauses that we are meant to compare, obviously. So, just as what, so what? Just as Moses exaltavit. This word is worth lingering on, I think. It's a development of the putative earlier verb alto, altare, that is to lift up, to raise up. Actually not a verb that we find very frequently in Latin of any period, but presumably there was a word like this way back in the history of Latin at some point. Alto meaning to raise, to make high. You can think of the adjective that is very common in Latin, altus, raised, lofty, high, all those different meanings. Ex alto is just kind of an emphatic form of that original verb. It seems ex alto, to lift up high energetically or really actively, to make something lofty. In English, we have the word exalt. When I was a little boy and I heard this word in hymns and songs in church, I thought it had something to do with salt, but it doesn't, dear video watchers. It really doesn't. Exalt means to lift on high, and we use it in English in more or less the same sense that it was used in Latin, but it is not to be confused, as it often is in English, with the word exalt, which doesn't mean to lift something up, but rather to bask in a kind of extreme emotion, usually extreme delight or happiness. You will exult in the news that you got a new job that you were hoping for, or something like that. That does not mean the same thing as exalt, to make high, to make lofty, which is what we have here, exalto. And that's just a straightforward first conjugation verb, exaltare, exaltavi, exaltatum. Here we have exaltavit, third person singular, perfect active indicative. Just as Moses lifted up the serpens, the snake, the serpent, and this is referring to an Old Testament passage relating to the travels of the Israelites through the wilderness, here represented by in deserto, in the desert, in the waste places. Just as this bronze serpent had been lifted up by Moses, so, and here's our points of comparison. Remember, this is our structuring element for the whole sentence. Sicut, just as this happened, so this ought to happen. Ita, and our verb here is oportet. This is an impersonal verb, which means it's going to look like this in the third person singular present active virtually all of the times that you see it. What does oportet mean? Well, it's part of a class of words and expressions that also includes necesse est, it is necessary, opus est, also it is necessary, the verb debeo, debere, I or you or he or she ought to do something. All of these words express necessity in varying degrees in Latin. We've talked about this a little bit before. They can kind of carry different forces in different contexts. I'm hesitant to lay down hard and fast rules about this too often because usage varied a lot in different periods and among different audiences. Normally, oportet is a little bit softer than necesse est or opus est, which refer to something that actually must happen. Often oportet means something that should happen, something that would be fitting or good, but it also was used casually in the same sense of actual necessity or compulsion sometimes, so it's sort of difficult to distinguish too rigorously between them in every case. But here we can say oportet, and we're going to use this impersonally, remember. So we've got no expressed subject, so we're going to supply an impersonal subject, which in English we do by using the word it. Ita, thus, oportet, it is fitting, or we might say it is necessary that, and now your ears should be tingling to expect an accusative infinitive construction in Latin. It is fitting that, now we get the subject of that indirect statement in the accusative case, filium. It is fitting or necessary that the Son of Man be lifted up. Remember, this is our present passive infinitive from exaltare, which we were just talking about. This is what it looks like in the passive. It is fitting or it is necessary that the Son of Man should be lifted up, exaltare.